The Legend of Zelda is named after the Princess of Hyrule. Whether due to divine reincarnation or an ancient naming tradition, there have been many different princesses born into Hyrule's royal family across the ages who have all shared the name Zelda, each of them inextricably linked to their kingdom's destiny. While Princess Zelda's role in the earlier games in the series was little more than that of a damsel in distress, a fairy tale princess for the hero, Link, to rescue, over the many iterations of her character, she has become increasingly more important and more detailed, to the point where, in the most recent game, Tears of the Kingdom, an argument could be made for her being the game's main character. As there are so many different incarnations of Hyrule's princess, it invites the question, which one is the strongest? Zelda is the bearer of the Triforce of Wisdom, and as such often fulfills a passive, sagely role. But there are multiple examples of Zelda's sheer power both in and out of combat, from simple telepathy to gigantic holy nukes. Not all Zeldas are equal, so today, let's analyse the princess's strengths, and rank them from weakest to strongest. First, we need to define what strongest actually means. So, in order to rank the princess's power levels, I'll score them each on a series of categories, different attributes that I'd consider relevant to the overall strength of a particular Zelda. So we'll begin with physical attributes. This isn't something that Princess Zelda is particularly known for, but it is important when discussing power levels, how physically strong and tough each version of the character is. The next category is much more relevant though, magical abilities. Every single iteration of Hyrule's princess is a potent magic user, so this skill will be the most crucial for determining the ranking. This won't just take into account offensive magic spells, but any other magical abilities the princess is shown to possess. Next is items and weaponry, a score based on which, if any, additional tools the character has that would aid their power level. And finally, another category which is very relevant to Zelda, intelligence and leadership. As the fated bearer of the Triforce of Wisdom, Zelda is known for her intellect, and this is every bit as relevant to the overall power level as anything else. And as Hyrule's princess, her leadership skills are paramount, so I'll be taking into account the responsibilities each incarnation bears and how successfully they bear them. So, with our ranking system ready, let's assess the strengths and weaknesses of every incarnation of Princess Zelda, from the original game all the way through to Tears of the Kingdom. Note that I'll only be taking the official Zelda canon into account here, so no spin-offs like Hyrule Warriors or extra appearances like Super Smash Bros. And another caveat is that in order to rank multiple versions of what is essentially the same person throughout time, I'm only going to rank them based on feats that we see them perform in the games themselves, as well as any additional content such as the game's manuals. For example, while we could infer that all Zeldas are probably equally intelligent, there are versions of the princesses that do less in their games and have less opportunities to show this, and will therefore naturally rank lower in this category than the versions with much more to do, with much more chances to shine. But with all that groundwork done, starting at the bottom, let's find out which Princess Zelda is the strongest. Adventure of Link though a direct sequel to the original game featuring the same hero, includes a different Princess Zelda entirely, one who was cursed by her brother and trapped in an endless slumber a long time before the game's events, until she is woken by Link and the completed Triforce. Since she is asleep for the entire game, we never see any of this Zelda's skills or abilities, only what we learn from the backstory, where she refused to tell her corrupt sibling the secrets of the Triforce. This Zelda appears to be a similar age to Link, who by the time of this game is said to be 16, so we can assume that she has a greater physical strength and endurance than the younger Zeldas, but we don't see her use any magical abilities nor any items in the game or its manual. The game also fails to show any examples of this Zelda's intelligence or leadership, except for her refusal to help her brother. Overall, this Zelda's role as a take on Sleeping Beauty, a quintessential damsel in distress, lands her firmly at the bottom of this list. Princess Zelda from Four Swords is immediately captured by Vati at the beginning of the game, and is only released once the Wind Mage is defeated in his palace. Other than this, she does nothing. Like with the Zelda from Adventure of Link, her attributes are quite difficult to rank accurately because of how little we see of her, but we can begin with a very low physical stat, being a young, small girl. The only notable magical skill we know of is mentioned in the game's prologue, that she was born with the power to sense approaching forces of evil, and was therefore chosen to watch over the Four Sword, and Vati's seal. This doesn't count for much when it comes to ranking her power level, but it further highlights that even the weakest Zeldas are born with magical abilities, enough to score her slightly above 0. Of course, we don't see this princess using any items or weaponry, leaving this skill right at the bottom. When it comes to intelligence and leadership though, she does bear the unique responsibility of watching over the Four Sword. While the fact that she's caught by surprise and captured immediately despite her ability to sense approaching evil probably doesn't place her among the brightest of Hyrule's princesses, she still shows more agency and holds more responsibility than the Zelda of Adventure of Link, bringing her total score up to 6. Next, we have the Princess Zelda from the Oracle games. Now, we know that in the official timeline, A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, and both Oracle games all feature the same incarnation of Link, the hero of legend. So it would make the most sense for them to feature the same Zelda too. But as we've seen in Zeldas 1 and 2, this isn't always the case. The only artwork we have of the Oracle's Zelda depicts her as younger than in A Link to the Past, despite the games taking place after it, and with a different hair colour. So while a strong argument could be made that the Zelda from the Oracle games is the very same one who appears in A Link to the Past, for the purposes of this list, I'll rank them as separate incarnations. Princess Zelda doesn't appear in person until the linked ending of the Oracle games, where Twin Rover attempt to sacrifice her to revive their master, Ganon. But the manual does describe her actions before the game's events. She sends her servant, Impa, to the lands of Holodrum and Labrynna in order to rescue the Oracles, Din and Nehru, from an approaching evil. When it comes to her ranking, we can begin with a low physical attribute stat, like the other child Zeldas. While we don't see any examples of her magical prowess in this game, the game's manuals describe an ability similar to the Zelda from Four Swords, the ability to predict oncoming evil, so I'll rank her similarly in that regard. She doesn't use any items or weapons, scoring her as 0 in that category, but her leadership and foresight are fundamental to the games. She knew of the approaching danger and laid plans to stop it. We're also told just how beloved this Zelda is by her people. In fact, the reason Twin Rover attempt to sacrifice her is to light the Flame of Despair, a magical light resembling the anguish of Hyrule's people with her god. gone. So while she still doesn't score particularly highly here, it's enough to bump her total score up to 7. The very first Princess Zelda, from the series' debut back in 1986, is a step up. Although the game begins with Zelda already having been captured by Ganon and imprisoned in his lair in Death Mountain's Spectacle Rock, the game's manual gives us a little more information on the character. Before the game's events, she had the foresight to break the Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces to keep it from Ganon. So while she is a young girl like the Four Swords Zelda, and ranks the same in the physical attribute stat, we're told of a much greater magical feat, as shattering a piece of the Triforce shows considerable magical strength. And while she again uses no items or weapons, she does display much more agency and intelligence than the previous two, in not only keeping the Triforce of Wisdom from Ganon, but in sending out her servant, Impa, to find a hero capable of defeating him, giving her an intelligence and leadership score of 5 and a total of 10. The Princess Zelda of A Link to the Past is introduced to us as the descendant of one of the 7 sages who originally imprisoned Ganon in the Dark World, making her the direct descendant of the Princess Zelda from Ocarina of Time. A Link to the Past Zelda is still younger and seemingly smaller than the adult Zeldas, who are usually around 17, but not as young as the child incarnations, and internal design documents for the game suggest that she is 16 years old. Because of this, I'll rank her between the child and adult versions on physical attributes with a score of 2. The game begins with Zelda showcasing her ability to communicate telepathically, an ability she shares with Sahasrahla. She is, unfortunately, almost immediately captured by Aghanim, and imprisoned within Turtle Rock for the majority of the game. But she does return near the end with another showcase of her magical strength. Together with the other maidens, she's able to break the seal on Ganon's tower, which, considering that this iteration of Ganon wields the full power of the Triforce and is one of the strongest adversaries in the entire series, is no small feat. She uses no items or weapons, so can't be ranked on that stat, and doesn't really get the opportunity to display her intelligence or leadership skills. As already mentioned, it is her telepathic distress call that summons Link's uncle, followed by Link himself, to the castle, but she otherwise plays the role of the classic damsel in distress. The same design document that gives her age as 16 describes her as being on the verge of escaping on her own by the time Link arrives to save her, but it doesn't seem that this idea made it into the final game, leaving her total score at 11. The Zelda from Four Swords Adventures seems very similar to the one from the original Four Swords. She has an identical appearance, and a similar fate of being captured right at the beginning of the game once Vati breaks free of the Four Sword. However, she benefits from her game having a much more fleshed out story. Vati's return was caused by the manipulations of Ganon via Shadow Link, making her capture seem far more understandable than in the original. Not only this, but this Princess Zelda shows considerably greater magical abilities. The game begins with the princess, along with the other shrine maidens, opening a portal to the Sanctuary of the Four Sword. And once freed from the Tower of Winds, Zelda continues to show potent magical strength. She helps during the battle against Shadow Link, creates a magical bridge, and even aids the Links in their final confrontation with Ganon, creating a ball of light which, when combined with the Link's own arrows, essentially creates light arrows. While she doesn't use any weapons or items, giving her a low score in that category, she does display a good deal of leadership and intelligence throughout the adventure. Though she's captured for most of the game, she guides the Links towards their final goal, and exposits much of the game's story, scoring her fairly highly on this final category and giving her a total score of 13. Though A Link Between Worlds is, in many ways, a spiritual remake of A Link to the Past, its story, and therefore its Zelda, is very different. Physically, she is identical to her ancestor, so it makes the most sense to give her the same physical attribute stat of 2. Not only does she show the same telepathic abilities as in A Link to the Past, she claims to have prophetic dreams. She shares the same nightmare as Link, of a hero locked in a battle with a terrible evil. She's captured by the evil sorcerer Yuga, who uses her, along with the other sages, to resurrect Ganon and bring him forth into the parallel world of Lorule. She remains imprisoned in a painting until the very end of the game, but even still shows considerable magical strength. She's able to summon the Bow of Light for Link to use, a sacred weapon imbued with the light of the Triforce itself. While she doesn't use it herself, giving her a low item stat, the ability to summon such a powerful, divine weapon while trapped in a painting shows her immense strength, scoring a 6 out of 10 on magical abilities. Another change from A Link to the Past is the fact that there is no King of Hyrule. Zelda rules as Princess Regent, in charge of all of Hyrule. This fact alone leads me to rank her intelligence and leadership higher than most others, but she also displays keen decision-making skills and compassion, as one would expect for a bearer of the Triforce of Wisdom. Zelda, along with Link, wishes on the Triforce to restore the Lorulean Triforce, to forgive Princess Hilda her transgressions, and to make Hyrule's twin kingdom whole again. Compared to most top-down princesses, the Zelda of A Link Between Worlds shows herself to be an intelligent, competent leader of Hyrule, scoring her a 7 out of 10 and bringing her total to 15. The Minish Cap's Princess Zelda is yet another damsel in distress. She's Link's childhood friend, but at the very beginning of the game, during the Picori Festival, she's petrified by Vati. She remains in this state for the entire game, until just before the final Vati fight. However, her role in the story is critical. It's revealed that the mystical light force, the golden power coveted by Vati, is found within Zelda. Vati discovers this and begins to extract the light force from her, but is stopped by Link before taking it all. Still, the portion he was able to steal is enough to grant him godlike power, transforming him into an eldritch monstrosity who can only be stopped by the Four Sword. At the end of the game, Princess Zelda uses what remains of the light force within her, as well as her just heart, to wish on Eslow's Mage's Cap, reversing all of the destruction wrought by Vati. So while this Zelda is absent for much of the game, she does possess an incredible magical power. Of course, this implies that the light force is present within the bloodline of all subsequent Zeldas too. However, Eslow's comment suggests that much of it has been drained by Vati. The backstory of the Minish Cap, when the hero of men was first gifted the light force by the Picori, happens sometime after the events of Skyward Sword, and the light force isn't really mentioned again after this either, so for the purposes of this list, we'll consider the Minish Cap's Zelda as the only princess with this particular innate power, scoring her a very high magic stat. Outside of this, she of course ranks lowly on physical attributes, as both her and Link in this game are just children, but her use of the Mage's Cap is enough to give her a solid items score. This was the artifact that allowed Vati to become the Wind Mage, and it, combined with Zelda, appears to have incredible wish-granting abilities. We don't see much of her intellect or leadership outside of Eslow mentioning that she possesses a just heart. Still, despite her absence for most of the game, this Zelda's possession of the Light Force is enough to bring her total up to a respectable 19. The Wind Waker's Zelda is unique in that she isn't introduced as Zelda. Instead, Link first encounters her as Tetra, captain of her own crew of pirates. Initially, she becomes involved in the story when she helps Link search for his kidnapped sister, but eventually discovers her true identity as the Princess of ancient Hyrule. While she is still a young child by the time of the game's events, her alter ego as Tetra is enough to rank her higher than most other Zeldas when it comes to physical attributes. While we never see her physical strength or endurance tested, you don't stay as the leader of a gang of pirates for long without being pretty tough. And I'd wager that Tetra is more than a match for almost every other Zelda when it comes to physical attributes alone. She is knocked unconscious by Ganondorf with a backhanded slap, but I'm not gonna hold being knocked out by a gigantic warlord wielding the Triforce of Power against her. If anything, it's impressive that she woke up at all. When it comes to magic, the Wind Waker's Zelda doesn't demonstrate any particularly impressive abilities. She is able to use the light arrows, however, and does so when she helps Link fight against Ganondorf. These drain a considerable amount of Link's magic meter every time an arrow is used, but Zelda is able to continue to use them for as long as the fight endures, meaning she must possess a relatively high magical strength, though not as great as some other Zeldas. As Tetra, she wears a small sword or dagger on her hip, making her one of very few Princess Zeldas to use some kind of weapon. Admittedly, we never see her use it during the game, but we can assume that, as the leader of a powerful pirate crew, she is competent with the weapon, and able to settle disputes and fight on the high seas. But this isn't all. As already mentioned, she wields Link's hero's bow and light arrows during the final confrontation with Ganondorf with expert accuracy, making her one of the best armed versions of the princess. When it comes to intelligence and leadership, however, this incarnation of Zelda really shines. She had been leading her crew of pirates for some time before the game's events. Despite being a child, she commands total respect on board her ship. Unfortunately, she does almost disappear from the game as soon as her true identity as Princess Zelda is revealed. She remains in sunken Hyrule until she is captured by Ganondorf and rescued by Link in time for the final battle. However, during this climactic showdown, she displays her cunning, suggesting that she shoot Link with the light arrows and have him reflect them at Ganondorf using the mirror shield, and taking the Gerudo King by surprise. Of course, Tetra also appears in Phantom Hourglass, the direct sequel to The Wind Waker. Unfortunately, her role in this game is reminiscent of the early Princess Zeldas, as nothing more than a damsel in distress. The game begins with her being kidnapped by Bellum's ghost ship and turned to stone, remaining in this state until the very end of the game. Her role in this game only serves to set the story in motion, and isn't really worth considering when it comes to this ranking, leaving her at a total of 20. Twilight Princess's Zelda is one of the most underutilized incarnations in the series, present only for small sections of the game. She is introduced as the ruler of Hyrule, though her kingdom has been invaded by Zant, king of Twilight. Her people are reduced to spirits, trapped in a netherworld from which they cannot escape. Zelda is imprisoned within a tower of Hyrule Castle, which is where she first meets with Link and Midna. Zelda appears to be a similar age to Link, being in her late teens or early adulthood. Because of this, we can immediately score her higher on physical attributes than the child princesses. When it comes to magical attributes, we don't see this Zelda show her abilities too often, but what we do see is telling. For starters, she, like Link, is able to survive inside the Twilight without being transformed into a spirit. Link takes on the form of a wolf when inside the darkness, thanks to his Triforce of Courage, but Zelda retains her true form, perhaps due to her possession of the Triforce of Wisdom. Later on in the game, when Midna is severely wounded by Zant, Zelda transfers all of her strength to the Twilight Princess, saving her from death, but in doing so, effectively dying herself. It's very possible that during this sequence, Zelda gives Midna her Triforce of Wisdom, or at least uses its power to accomplish the feat. This is a display of incredible magical strength, enough to undo the damage done by Zant. During the final confrontation with Ganondorf in Hyrule Castle, the Dark Lord possesses Zelda's body, and fights Link as Puppet Zelda. Here, it's difficult to establish which powers are innate to Zelda herself, and which are only the result of her possession by Ganondorf. During the battle, Puppet Zelda utilizes orbs of light, as well as attacks in the shape of golden triangles, the designs of which do closely resemble the magical abilities usually possessed by Zelda. Overall, what we do see throughout the game is certainly enough to grant this Zelda a high magic ranking, but the ambiguity surrounding the source of her magic in her boss fight will limit it slightly. When it comes to items and weaponry, the obvious example is that this princess uses the Bow of Light during the horseback battle against Ganondorf. As always, this is an incredibly powerful sacred weapon, which Zelda is able to use with excellent precision. Not only this, but this incarnation of Zelda is shown to wield a blade. In both the cutscene showing Zant's invasion, as well as the Puppet Zelda battle, she wields an ornate sword. Admittedly, during the Zant cutscene, the sword is only used as a symbol of surrender, as Zelda drops it to signify Hyrule's defeat, but Puppet Zelda uses the weapon extensively, both for physical and magical attacks. Again, like with her magical abilities, it's difficult to discern whether to attribute this to Zelda or to Ganondorf, but the fact that she carries the sword at all is enough to rank her weapons and item stat as higher than most. When it comes to leadership and intelligence, despite her limited screen time, Zelda is shown to be the ruler in charge of Hyrule, one who makes difficult decisions such as surrendering to an almighty foe, enough to earn her a solid score in this category too, and land her with an impressive total of 23. Skyward Sword serves as the origin story for much of the Zelda canon. It is the first game in the timeline and tells the story of the very first Demon King and the very first Link and Zelda in the chronology. Skyward Sword's Zelda is the daughter of Gaepora, the headmaster of the Knights Academy on Skyloft, a town built on an island floating far above the clouds. However, Zelda's true identity is that of the mortal reincarnation of the goddess Hylia, the divine being who once guarded the Triforce long before the game's events. While other Zeldas share the blood of the goddess, the magical, divine royal bloodline, this just means that they are the descendants of this original Zelda. She is the only incarnation to be the direct reincarnation of the goddess. Much of her story throughout Skyward Sword involves learning about her past life, and the reasons for her decision, as Hylia, to reincarnate as a mortal. She prays at sacred springs to reawaken her lost memories, guided by her faithful servant, Impa. This incarnation of Zelda is around the same age as Link, who is said to be just older than 17 at the time of the game's events. She's therefore bigger and stronger than the child versions of her character, but as with every Zelda, physicality isn't her strong suit. Near the beginning of her quest on the surface, she is easily captured and imprisoned by red bokoblins. When it comes to magical ability though, this Zelda truly shines. While we don't actually see her fight, her identity as the goddess Hylia reborn means that she is extraordinarily powerful. Around halfway through the game, she travels back to the distant past, to a time just after she, as Hylia, had imprisoned Demise in the sealed grounds. Knowing that this seal must hold until the present day, thousands of years in the future, Zelda imprisons herself in a crystal so that she could watch over and maintain the magic keeping Demise sealed. And she does. In a fantastic example of a closed time loop, the player can see Zelda in her crystal in the present day as soon as they reach the surface, showing that she has continued to maintain the seal since the distant past. As a reminder, the being she is keeping imprisoned is Demise, the original Demon King, a primordial, godlike entity of raw hatred and malice. Not only this, but this incarnation of Zelda was able to bless the newly forged Master Sword, giving it its trademark ability to repel evil. This is very similar to how the prayers of the sages of Earth and Wind imbue the blade with sacred power in the Wind Waker, only this time it is done by Zelda alone. So while it again isn't an example of a direct, offensive use of magic, the magical feats we do see are enough to rank her abilities as among the greatest in the series, a perfect 10 out of 10. As you'd expect, this Zelda doesn't use any items or weaponry except for the Goddess Harp, which she plays near the beginning of the game. In Link's hands, the harp can play multiple magical songs, but it's never shown to be the case with Zelda, so I'll rank her fairly low on this category. When it comes to intelligence, however, this Zelda again shines for the fact that she is the direct reincarnation of the goddess Hylia. By recovering her memories, she comes to understand the plans laid by her original self. She remembers her own complex, millennia-spanning plot to defeat the Demon King, and is able to understand the role she laid out for herself, and thus earns a considerable intelligence score. Overall, Skyward Sword Zelda is exceptionally powerful, despite never showing her abilities in a combat scenario. Holding the position as the only version of Zelda to be the direct reincarnation of Hylia grants her literally godlike magical abilities, and ranks her as one of the most powerful iterations of the character we've ever seen, beaten, in my opinion, by just 3 others. We're close to the top now, the Zelda from Ocarina of Time. After the opening of the game and the death of the Great Deku Tree, Link is sent to meet Hyrule's princess, a young girl with prophetic dreams. She suspects Ganondorf, leader of the Gerudo tribe, of swearing a false allegiance to her father, the king, in order to gain the Triforce for himself, and she sends Link to collect the 3 spiritual stones in order to gain access to the Sacred Realm before he does. However, Ganondorf is revealed to have been manipulating them both. He follows Link into the Sacred Realm and takes the Triforce of Power for himself. Worse still, Link becomes trapped in the Sacred Realm, while he ages from a child into an adult warrior capable of saving the world. 7 years in the future, in the dark timeline ruled by Ganondorf, adult Link is guided by Sheik, a mysterious Sheikah. At the end of the game, Sheik is revealed to be adult Zelda, having escaped Ganondorf's grasp with her attendant, Impa, and trained under her for 7 years. Ocarina of Time's Princess Zelda has a crucial role in both halves of the game, and displays a wide set of abilities and skills. To begin her ranking, we'll start with physical attributes. Of course, there are 3 different forms to judge: Child Zelda, Adult Zelda, and Sheik, but we'll rank her at her strongest, which is when she's in disguise as a Sheikah. Sheik is visibly agile and muscular, far more so than any other version of the princess. After completion of the Water Temple, Sheik sneaks away from Link before climbing the nearby tree and diving into Lake Hylia, all in a matter of seconds. And during the Nocturne of Shadow cutscene, we see Sheik attacked by Bongo Bongo, thrown through the air and slammed into the ground. This hit doesn't wound her, however, and the spirit of Bongo Bongo is strong enough to knock Link unconscious just seconds later, showing Sheik's physical resilience to be comparable to Link's here, and bringing this stat up to 7. When it comes to magical attributes, Ocarina of Time's Zelda excels too. Not only does she, like Link, have prophetic dreams of the future, she displays telepathic abilities like in A Link to the Past. She's able to relay messages to Link, such as when she teaches him the Song of Time. In the future, as Sheik, she's able to summon walls of flame or sandstorms, as well as seemingly teleport, or at the very least, move at inhumanly fast speeds after stunning Link. In the moment when Ganondorf touched the Triforce and gained the Triforce of Power for himself, the Triforce pieces of courage and wisdom were bestowed upon those who best embodied their attributes, Link and Zelda respectively. Adult Zelda possesses this divine artifact, as many incarnations of the Princess of Hyrule do, and apparently uses it to reveal her true identity near the end of the game. As Zelda, she continues to display potent magical abilities. She creates the light arrows, and during the final battle, is able to hold Ganon in a beam of sacred light, before, as the leader of the sages, she plays a pivotal role in sealing the beast in a void in the sacred realm. At the very end of the game, we see one final magical ability from the princess, though it may be the greatest of all. She's able to use the Ocarina of Time to send a Link back 7 years. This was previously something that only placing or removing the Master Sword from its pedestal of time could accomplish. Yet Zelda is able to perform this action seemingly with only the Ocarina. When it comes to weapons and items, Sheik, like her mentor Impa, uses Deku Nuts in order to stun those nearby when she leaves, appearing to vanish as if in a puff of smoke. In addition to this, she uses the Goddess Harp, originally played by Zelda from Skyward Sword, to teach Link various warp songs, allowing him to teleport around Hyrule, and of course Zelda uses the Ocarina of Time itself after the final battle. There is concept artwork of Sheik fighting alongside Link, wielding a small blade, but we never see this in-game, so I won't count it towards her score, landing her at 5 in this category. And finally, leadership and intelligence. Of course, it goes without saying that Ocarina of Time Zelda ranks highly in this category. She of course correctly suspects Ganondorf of his betrayal, and drops some beautifully poetic wisdom as Sheik. While at the beginning of the game Hyrule is ruled by its king, and therefore this Zelda does not have the leadership responsibilities of some others, she still displays a high level of competence and intellect, especially in the second half of the game. She does decide to remove her disguise near the end, leading to her immediate capture, but this one blunder isn't enough to severely impact her score here. Overall, Ocarina of Time Zelda is one of the greatest incarnations in the series, thanks in no small part to her alter ego. She displays powerful abilities in 2 separate time periods, and leads Hyrule and Link to victory against impossible odds, leading me to award her a total score of 27. Spirit Tracks is set 100 years after the events of Phantom Hourglass, in the newly established, and imaginatively named, New Hyrule. The Zelda of Spirit Tracks is unique in that she dies at the beginning of the game. Her spirit is separated from her body after Chancellor Cole's betrayal. Only Link can see her ghostly form, leading her to become his companion throughout the game. Naturally, this expanded role means that she is one of the best versions of the princess so far. Physically, she remains a child, which would score her equally with the other very young Zeldas in this category, but this Zelda is unique, thanks to the considerable magical abilities shown throughout her journey. The first, and most obvious, is the ability to exist as a spirit, and to house said spirit in other bodies via possession. Throughout the game, this is primarily showcased with phantoms, powerful enemies which Zelda can take control of. This ability is used all throughout the game. showing not only potent magical strength, but also giving this incarnation of Zelda an incredibly high physical attribute stat. There aren't many things tougher than a phantom possessed by a princess. Phantom Zelda is exceptionally powerful, and can possess different phantoms to accomplish different goals. This not only increases her physical stat significantly, but also counts towards her weapons and items stat, which is further increased by the fact that this Zelda wields the Bow of Light in the final battle, and even goes as far as to wield the Locomo Sword alongside Link to deal the final blow. The sheer extent of Zelda's magical powers are highlighted constantly throughout the game. Her body is intended to be a vessel for the Demon King, Malladus, who will use her strength to rule the world. It's mentioned that Malladus requires a body from the royal line of ancient Hyrule, with sacred power coursing through its veins, so this strength would technically be something innate to all Zeldas, but again, I'm only ranking each incarnation based on what we see in their respective games. Once Zelda's spirit is again housed in its proper body, during the final battle, we get another example of her arcane powers. Link must defend her from Malladus' attacks as she channels her strength, until it can be combined with the Spirit Flute into an attack that can cripple the Demon King. Not only does this Zelda display incredible magical abilities and make use of a wide arsenal of powerful items, she also displays high intelligence and leadership skills. She is, like only a handful of others, the Princess Regent of New Hyrule, solely responsible for the prosperity of her land. But throughout the entire game, she serves as something of a guide for Link. The hero and the princess have to work together to restore the Spirit Tracks and the Tower of Spirits, and to defeat Chancellor Cole and Malladus. By virtue of being Link's companion, we see more of this Zelda than perhaps any other, and she has plenty of opportunity to demonstrate her intelligence and wisdom, bringing her total score up to 29, and securing her position as one of the strongest incarnations of the princess in the series. But not quite the strongest. This is a pick most people probably expected. In my opinion, the Zelda portrayed in the Switch games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, is the most powerful incarnation of the princess in the entire series. Let's break down why. The story of this particular princess begins over a century before the events of Breath of the Wild, when she was born as the royal daughter of Hyrule's sovereign, King Rhoam Bosphoramos Hyrule. Her childhood was cut short at age 6, however, when her mother died suddenly, just as Hyrule was shaken by a prophecy. A fortune teller foretold the return of the Calamity Ganon, a primal evil remembered as little more than a fairy tale, almost forgotten after his last appearance 10,000 years ago. So, as the young princess grew up, her kingdom was mobilizing against an invisible threat, excavating colossal war machines built by the ancient Sheikah, and learning to use these weapons to defend itself. From a young age, Zelda showed a keen interest in ancient technology. She yearned to unlock the secrets of the machines, and would spend her days experimenting and researching the devices. But she had a greater purpose. As a female born into Hyrule's royal bloodline, she possessed latent sacred powers, essential to victory in the upcoming war against Ganon. When the Calamity eventually struck, it seized control of the machines that were designed to oppose it, and Hyrule fell. Or rather, almost fell. At the climax of the Great Calamity, when Zelda's chosen knight, Link, fell in battle, her sacred powers awakened. An explosion of divine light that extinguished Ganon's malice from inside the machines, saving Link from certain death. With her abilities finally unlocked, Zelda journeyed to Hyrule Castle itself and sealed the Calamity, holding it prisoner inside the Sanctum for 100 years. The events of Breath of the Wild then occur. Link wakes from his restorative slumber in the Shrine of Resurrection and defeats Ganon in combat, weakening the beast to the point where Zelda's sealing powers can destroy it. Zelda's role in Breath of the Wild would already be enough to place her near the top of this list, but her journey in the game's direct sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, guarantees it. At the beginning of this game, Zelda is transported to the distant past after she and Link discover the sealed body of Ganondorf, the source of the calamity, deep below Hyrule Castle. Here she meets with the first king of Hyrule, King Rauru, and his wife, Queen Sonia. She's revealed to be their distant descendant, and has inherited both Raru's power of evil-dispelling light and Sonia's power to control time itself. Trapped in the distant past, she realizes that her role is to guarantee Link's victory in the present. She uses her time powers to summon the broken Master Sword to the past before making the ultimate sacrifice to carry it to the present. She swallows her secret stone and transforms into the Light Dragon. Zelda exists in this form, draconified, for thousands of years, a lonely existence flying high above her own kingdom, waiting for the time she knows as her own. But her sacrifice wasn't in vain. In the present, Link retrieves the restored blade, and with it in hand, defeats Ganondorf once and for all, before restoring Zelda to her original form. If it wasn't already clear from that summary, this incarnation of Zelda not only has by far the most extensive, detailed story out of any of them, but the most impressive feats too. Let's see how she scores on the rankings. First, physical attributes. This one's a little bit difficult. As Zelda, she is only as physically powerful as the other adult princesses, which I've so far been ranking at 3 out of 10. However, I've been ranking the Zeldas at their absolute strongest, such as ranking Sheik's physicality in Ocarina of Time and Zelda's phantoms in Spirit Tracks. So it's only fair to rank this Zelda's physical prowess in her strongest form, the Light Dragon itself. A gargantuan, serpentine being of almost incalculable strength and toughness. With this in mind, it's impossible to rank this draconic incarnation of Zelda as anything lower than a perfect 10. When it comes to magical abilities, too, this Zelda is just outstanding. In Breath of the Wild, her sealing powers are strong enough to break Ganon's hold on countless guardians. Her light purges each of them of the malice controlling their circuits. She was then powerful enough to hold the Calamity Ganon prisoner in Hyrule Castle for 100 years, until Link was ready to face him. And in the present, the displays of Zelda's magical might continue. She's able to telepathically communicate to Link from the castle, as well as teleport her hero from the Astral Observatory out into Hyrule Field to face Ganon, where she uses her powers to create the Bow of Light, a weapon which fires arrows of pure light designed to oppose the Calamity. And Tears of the Kingdom only makes her stronger. The story begins with the princess falling back through time after she finds Raru's secret stone, but it's revealed later on in the story that it was her own power of time manipulation that achieved this. Once she picked it up, Raru's secret stone changed its color and symbol to represent time, and vastly increased the princess's ability to control it. In the distant past, she is trained in this ability by Sonia, to the point where she is eventually able to use recall to rewind projectiles, like the thrown weapons of Puppet Zelda and the Sages, and to summon the Master Sword back to her. And finally, her power of light, inherited from Rauru, is what allows her to restore the blade. Though it takes thousands of years, the Light Dragon's divine energy pouring into the blade is enough to not only heal it, but to make it stronger than ever before, to the point where Ganondorf's gloom cannot touch it. It's worth noting that when Zelda uses her light powers, such as when she defeats the Guardians and when she restores the Master Sword, the symbol of the Triforce is visible on the back of her right hand. It's a little bit ambiguous why this is, if her light powers are inherited from Rauru. But perhaps, just like how the Minish Cap's Zelda held the light force within her bloodline, this Zelda holds the power of the Triforce itself. But regardless of its source, she's been shown to accomplish feats beyond that of any other Zelda in the series, scoring her yet another perfect 10. Thirdly, we have items and weaponry. While she, like most other Zeldas, is never shown to use direct weapons, she does make use of gadgetry, both the Sheikah Slate and its successor, the Purapad. She seems to use both devices primarily for research purposes, but we see her use the Purapad's teleportation feature during the confrontation with Ganondorf. She also wields a Zonai secret stone, the one she found on Raru's hand in the present day, which greatly increases her power to control time. Secret stones appear to be among the most powerful items we've seen in the series, so having this in her possession is enough to grant her an exceptional score here too. And finally, intelligence and leadership. In both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda is shown to be an exceptionally bright and wise individual. Before the Calamity, she assists in research into the ancient Sheikah technology, helping to uncover its secrets alongside the Sheikah scientists. Her research is so important to her that she has an entire study dedicated to it close to her bedroom in the castle, and it is her passion for this, as well as her inability to awaken her sealing powers at first, that causes tension between her and her father, the king. Between the events of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda rules alone as Princess Regent. She spearheads the efforts to restore her broken kingdom, building towns and schools and forming research teams. By the time of Tears of the Kingdom, she has become Hyrule's beloved leader, a beacon of hope for a world just beginning to piece itself back together. There are moments when Zelda's brilliance comes into question, however, such as during the "a show of fealty" memory, when she fails to make the connection between Ganondorf and the evil figure she met in the present day, despite having spent a century holding Calamity Ganon imprisoned. She even mentions that his name gives her pause, but this somehow isn't enough for her to make the connection. It's only much later, after his transformation into the Demon King, that she understands who he is and what he represents. This obviously isn't enough to lower her score significantly, and she still ranks as the joint highest in this category. Overall, the Zelda from the most recent games in the series is shown to be, by far, the most powerful incarnation yet. On multiple occasions, she achieves greater feats than any other, culminating in her becoming one of the most powerful, divine beings in Zelda canon, the Light Dragon. She's a competent, intelligent ruler. She uses both advanced technology and ancient artifacts to her advantage, and, with her powers unlocked, possesses godlike strength. Tears of the Kingdom is perhaps the game most worthy of the title The Legend of Zelda, and its title character is the greatest of them all. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like or subscribe if you haven't already for more Zelda content. This video was part 1 of a 3-part series ranking the various iterations of Zelda's main trio. So stay tuned for rankings covering the various Ganons and Links in the near future. Before you go, I'm doing a playthrough of Ocarina of Time over on my other channel, Zeldudes.
Oh,
there we go!
Oh,
whoa!
You did it! Nice!
Join Zelda Master and myself for secrets, mysteries, Easter eggs, and just general conversation about the most iconic Zelda game of all. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.